station was started by three of the biggest media moguls in Waco not too long ago, paired with a company that does a lot of online stuff. And then they found myself, a 20-year-old, random 20-year-old, and then JD, who's 36, and then a bunch of other guys. And they said, hey, do you guys want to do a radio show? Maybe it'll work out. And here we are 4 weeks later on Up-Tempo.
Yep.
That's sweet, dude. I worked back in the day, a long time ago. I worked in Austin, Texas. This was in the early 90s. When Peter Gardere was the quarterback of the Texas Longhorns. So we used to come up to Baylor all the time, and I'd make my way through Waco up to Dallas and stuff. So I know that area pretty well. I miss it. You guys look good.
Floyd Casey Stadium, baby. Yeah, the Blonde Boys Power Hour going on up here on Up-Tempo, bringing it on the Friday, too. So, Vic, here's where I want to start, man. You obviously, you've been in sports media a long time. Where did the inspiration come from that you one day said, you know what, I'm going to ask a long question?
Well, because you know how it is. You've been in this business for a while. You'll see that every time there's a group setting for an interview, there's always that one reporter that has to ask a real nuanced question, and the rest of us are always sitting there going, "All right, man, come on. I mean, we only have like 10 minutes with this athlete or coach. Can we please get on with it?" And it's always been funny. You go back to the radio station or the TV station, you listen to the sound, and oh, great, here's this one. So it just dawned on me one day. I've asked every question under the sun to every athlete and coach known. I'm sick of asking a typical question. So one day I decided I'm going to go as long as I possibly can. And I didn't have anything ready. I just said, I'm just going to keep talking and see how long this poor guy, Darian Stewart, was the subject. He was my victim that day. I'm going to see how long he's going to go with this. And he went a good, what was it, a minute 13?
Minute 13.
Minute 13.
Yeah. So that was it. My quest was to go as long as I possibly could to break a minute. And it's like trying to hold your breath underwater, right? You're down there, and then you're feeling strong at the beginning. First 20 seconds of that question, I felt strong. Then I started to waver at about the 40-second mark. And then you get to a minute, man, and you're just like, I don't know if I have anything left in the tank. And I got through those last 13 seconds with the grace of God.
You went the distance. And we are all better for it.
Sure.
On a personal level, someone in sports media, Drake and I, starting out in sports media, more or less starting out. What is your story into your profession that you are finding yourself now in?
Well, it's changed a lot. I mean, listen, when I first started, there weren't many opportunities because it was pretty standard. You either get a television job locally or you get a radio job locally. There weren't all these other opportunities. The internet didn't exist. You didn't have digital media. So I think today, it's such a wonderful opportunity for young folks who want to get into this because you have avenues. Man, you can make a name for yourself on your own with your own cell phone. You don't need the help of a TV network or a TV station. It is somewhat cumbersome because there are too many options today, but I wish I had this at the ready when I was getting into it because there weren't many doors to open back then.
So tell me, Vic, when you asked that question, and you said you've asked almost every question under the sun, and you've heard, I'm sure, every question asked. When you asked that specific question, what was the reaction of the media members around you? Because it seems like everybody is decently annoyed.
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, I'd be annoyed if they weren't annoyed. I would be angry if they were not angry. They should be angry. They should have been annoyed by that because it was a complete, I took up their time, but there's a reason I did it. I did that for a reason. And I've got a pretty good relationship with most of the media here in town. So I think they understood where I was going. So they may have been annoyed for that day, but after the fact, I think they understood where I was with that. Yeah, that's it. I would never try that. Like in a new market, if I just showed up and I said, here I am, I'm going to do something stupid, you would never do that unless you know people around you. And I've been here long enough to do it.
I was going to say, was there any follow-up conversations from some of your counterparts after that interview? Like, hey, Vic, you feeling all right? Or, hey, Vic, don't ever do that again. I need to get my bite.
Yeah, there were a couple of people who came up to me and said, what, did you do that on purpose? I go, of course I did that on purpose. Do you think I'm that idiot? Yeah, I mean, there was follow-up questions there, but you have to understand, back in the day when you can interview an athlete in person, pre-COVID, right, before you could do the Zoom thing, there were like 4 or 5 interviews going on at the same time all over the field. So I only affected a certain amount of people. I didn't affect the entire group. I mean, I was ready to pay the price. Didn't bother me.
Tell me too, since I've gotten to Baylor and been around press conferences and kind of the same thing where you've got 2 or 3 players around the room and everybody's sticking their microphone or their camera in their face and they're asking questions. And there's always that one guy that asks 6 questions in one and it takes up about 45 seconds. And the coach or the player has zero idea which question to answer. They usually just pick one and it's a yes or a no. I get that you're making a point, but can you explain for those that are still curious, what exactly is that point?
No point at all. I guess my point was just to see how long I could ask a question. I wasn't trying to set an example or anything like that. That was just out of pure frivolity for my own entertainment pleasure. I had no point at all. I just, I have a TV show I do here in town, and it's a weekly show, and I like to do things a little differently. I don't want to do the standard stuff, the standard Q&A. That was my point, to put something on the air that was different, I guess.
Sounds a lot like us, Vic, if you will.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to that minute 13, right? Do you ever get the itch to say, "Hey, man, I could go minute 15. I could go a minute 20."
Dude, yeah. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. It's not about asking the question. It's about getting an interview subject that is tolerant enough and patient enough to let you go. I mean, I could go, man. I can go 5 minutes if you want. But that person is this guy, think about it. Darian Stewart, one of the nicest human beings ever. Former Broncos safety. He was on that Super Bowl 50 championship team. To this day, every time I speak to him, talk to him, he talks about that interview because he couldn't believe how long. But you have to get someone who's nice. If you got, can you imagine trying that with a jerk? Can you imagine trying that with somebody who's short-tempered? I mean, it wouldn't even be funny. You have to find somebody who would tolerate you.
Coach K.
Yeah, asking that to Coach K as a student media member may not go.
I think you'd die. You'd be dead or alive.
No.
You would be dead.
I think he died.
You would be dead. So for you, and you talked about like doing things a little bit different. So we at Uptempo are in a market in Waco where we want to really just broaden the scope of sports media and make it something new and just crazy. A little bit out there. What are the keys to doing that? How do you make content that's just a little bit different that people fall in love with and keep coming back for?
Well, it has to be content like, if you think something is funny, right, or if you think something is standard, or you don't like the way things are done and you want to do it your way, you throw it out there. And if people say, "Oh, that's pretty good, I can relate to that," then it worked. But if nobody can relate to it and everybody's like, "What the hell did I just see?" then it's just silly and stupid. So obviously, I did something you could relate to, right?
Right.
When you do creative content, when you put creative content together, you're going to have a lot of hits and a lot of misses. And you just got to find that niche. You got to find what works and what doesn't. That's all it is. It's like everyone's sense of humor. Not everybody's sense of humor is the same. All right. I could do something that I'm just belly roll laughing over, and I think it's the greatest thing. And some other dude or gal looks at it and says, "That is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life." It depends, man. You got to take your shot. If you don't take your shot, you got no chance.
Yeah, those are very familiar sound bites you're giving me. That was stupid. That was the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
We've earned our fair share of that.
Do you know how many times in my career, I'm 51 years old. I've been in this for a good 25, 26 years. Do you know how many times I've been told, "Yeah, that doesn't work. That's dumb." Or
over under 7.
Oh, I mean, 7. Try 70. It's just part of the deal, man. Again, if you're not willing to take chances, you're never going to get to where you hope to go. You have to take chances. Not everything has to be vanilla. Let the people that do vanilla handle the vanilla. You be you.
Vanilla makers. Those are the ones you got to watch out for.
So if not vanilla, then what other flavor, Vic? I love vanilla.
Neapolitan?
Yeah, I'm a mixture. I like to, if you have to be serious, you're serious. I've done my share of serious stories, obviously, but if it calls for humor, it calls for humor. You got to understand, I did that. This was training camp, Broncos training camp. I can't remember what year it was. And it was the dog days. We'd been there 2-3 weeks asking the same damn questions. How much more can you glean from these football players? And it was time. It was time to go the distance. And that's why I did it then.
And so let me ask you this question then. What % of it in your decision-making with like, hey, this is creative content is, hey, I think this is funny. I don't really care what anybody else thinks versus, oh, this is going to blow up. What's the process there and what's the give and take?
That's a great question. A lot of it is my circle of people that I work with. Like at that time, my photographer, maybe my editor. I'll talk to a couple of my friends among us, and I throw it off them. Hey, I'm going to do something today. What do you think? And if I get an eye roll or that's the dumbest thing you've ever heard, I may not engage. But if I get laughter or, yeah, I dare you to try that, then I'll do it. So a lot of it is, you're hanging out with your pals and what do you think about this idea? And you throw it at them. I had the idea. I mentioned it to a couple people and we went with it. So that's everything in life, guys. I mean, it's not just television. It's everything you do, everything. I mean, you don't have to have total approval. You're doing this radio show. Every word out of your mouth, you're not getting approval for every word. You're going with the flow. And on something like this, you sort of get a feeling of what works and what doesn't. And I had the feeling that it would work. I guess it did. I don't know.
So then along with that, with whether it worked or didn't work, the question of Darian, what was the response after that, not just from other members of the media, but from the public? Did you find that video caught traction quick?
Yeah, I got some people in the public saying, boy, that was cringeworthy. It was hard. Like my own family would watch and they'd have to look away because they felt so sorry for the interview subject. They felt sorry for Darian. So, and then you got other people that were just laughing the entire time. Like I said, I mean, it's not like I'm stabbing him or something. It's not like I'm hitting him with a bat. I'm just asking a question. Just answer the question. My favorite part of it is at the very end when he says, so what's the question?
That's so awesome. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you this as well. The last name, Lombardi. The first name, Vic. Very close to Vince, if you were to say it quick enough. How much has that helped you and how much conversation has that created having that last name?
Yeah, a lot, actually. When I was still first looking for work as a young kid, as a matter of fact, I sent a tape up to Green Bay, Wisconsin, as a local sportscaster. It's a God's honest truth, and I almost got the job. I was going to work for a TV station in Wisconsin, in Green Bay, that was located on Lombardi Avenue. So that would have been weird. But no, it did. Listen, my name's my name. It has nothing to do with Vince Lombardi, no relation whatsoever. My parents are right off the boat. But I've educated myself on the history of Vince Lombardi just in case I need to lie.
I don't even have a
We
vote.
did introduce you on the show as the son of Vince Lombardi, and I can guarantee you that a large portion of people.
I'm not that old, dude.
51. You're spring chicken.
Right. Vince just started late. That's how it goes sometimes. Yeah. How about this? And before we let you go, for anybody in sports media or just in general, it's getting into this game. What's your nugget that you give to everybody when they say, hey, Vic, you've asked the longest question of all time. Take that, Olympians. What's your advice?
My advice for any youngster that wants to get in, ask questions, be proactive, provide content. I listen, we have a lot of young people that work at our network now, and I say the same thing to them. If this is what you want to do, be prepared to work for virtually nothing for a long time to get to where you want to go. You have to love it that much. I go back and I look at some of my first jobs, and it was pathetic how much I got paid. But I never considered it work, right? It was never work to me. This was love. This was my career. This was my life. So if you love it that much and you're willing to stick with it, go there. But you have to be proactive. You can't be shy and sheepish. Sheepish and lazy isn't going to get you anywhere, especially this business.
Wow, yeah, I'm good after that.
Yeah.
How do we get a blue check?
Find me a brick wall. Find me a brick wall and a blue check. All right. Vic, before we let you go, too, we've got Bear Games. So we play on this show every day. Every caller, every guest is subject to just the weirdest questions that we can find. Today's, I got two of them, and I wasn't going to give you the first one, but I am now just because I no holds bar.
No holds barred.
Auburn and Baylor play
Chippish.
tomorrow in a decently big basketball game. Baylor's okay at basketball this season. You got to give me a score prediction, Vic, if you were going to bet the house on this one tomorrow.
God, I watched Baylor against Kansas earlier this season. That's a great question. I'll go 86-72 Baylor.
I like the high score. I think the over hits on this one for sure. And then
we know what the over is.
Oh, yeah. I think both teams like to score. Baylor's averaging almost 90 points per game. Auburn will run it up to 95 if they want to on most teams in the SEC. Vic, and then if you could be in one cartoon from the 90s or the early 2000s, which one are you in?
from the 90s or early 2000s. God, that's not my wheelhouse. My cartoon era was the 70s and 80s, but I'll go back to the 90s. Let me think. What cartoons? God, I used to watch my kids' cartoons. I'll say Dora the Explorer.
Ooh.
Wow.
Because he's always in his bag. No, I'm talking about backpack.
That's vanilla, man. Jeez, that's terrible.
I know, Vic. I was really excited about that answer, and you hit me with Dora the Explorer.
I like Dora the
My
Explorer.
bad.
All good, Vic. Thanks so much for joining us today, breaking down your longest question of all time. You are the second Olympian to come on our show, but we're honored to have you.
Hey, keep doing what you're doing, boys. Proud of you, man. Appreciate having me on. Thanks.
Thanks, Vic.
Absolutely. Thanks, Vic. All right, folks. We're going to hit a break here with Armstrong's Minute. When we come back, we're going to do a little SicEm Pick'em, a real quick SicEm Pick'em, and then we are playing